Crew, I got an important message for you this week. You gotta let people play with the big brushes. That's this week on the Badass Agile podcast. Greetings, team. Welcome to the Badass Agile podcast. I'm your host, Chris Williams. Hey, everybody. This week I want to address the fear that surrounds speaking your mind and creating what you want to create as part of a big team in a big organization. It can be a severely limiting factor, and I want to show you how to address it. But first, let's take that moment to remember why we're here. To create a unique tribe of leaders who truly serve their clients and communities by doing what matters and what works, relentlessly chasing value and excellence like a badass. There's so many resources out there about what you need to do to be agile, but we focus on who you need to become in order to lead teams. So let's hammer down those fundamentals to create a truly unique and powerful force in this industry. And remember, if this helps you, tell your friends. You can find us on the Facebook Badass Agile Listener Lounge. You can find us on CLUBHOUSE and everywhere that people gather. Now here's the deal. Everything that we build as agile teams is a form of creativity. I don't care if you're building software, if you're building HC policy, I don't care if you're building a legal agreement, or if you're building marketing copy. It doesn't matter. All those acts are acts of creativity, and all creativity requires freedom. To me, creative freedom means the ability to desire and dream. That is to say, to conceive of outcomes or a future with impunity, meaning there is no penalty for dreaming too big. There is no censor that decides what a good idea or a bad idea is. Now, to create that culture in your organization will be no accident. You have to enable it as a leader, and you have to defend it. Most organizations I encounter don't know how to do either. So it becomes incumbent on us as agile leaders and practitioners to make sure that we're the guardians at the gate, that we're the enablers, in fact. And that means removing the cost of failure around ideation, creativity, and innovation. Picture this scenario. You got a team of people who have been entrusted with an outcome, a business outcome, whether that's an increase in revenue, whether that's reducing turnover, whether that's new customer acquisition, whether that's entering new markets, whether it's changing the happiness or the well-being of the organization, it doesn't matter what the outcome is or how you measure it. At some point, you have paid presumably smart, presumably capable, presumably experienced, presumably passionate people to enact that outcome for you. They're supposed to be responsible for the how. The executive layer creates the strategy, creates the vision, creates the outcomes, and creates the measurements. But it's the people on the ground, even at very senior levels, who at some point have to decide how. How are we going to do this? How are we going to get that outcome? How are we going to hit that measurement? And it's at this point that those business leaders and the teams on the ground should be entrusted to find the solution. That's what you're paid to do. That's what you're highly paid to do. And yet, tell me if I'm wrong, how many times do you experience those folks gathering in a room completely unsure of whether it's okay to say, we should go this way, we should try this solution, we should use this approach? And yet, how many times have you had the experience of being part of a team where even the most senior people are unsure if they are allowed to take this approach, use this method, try this strategy, or to even start with a particular experiment? We have this inbred and reinforced assumption that whatever we do has to work the first time, has to be perfect out of the gate, and has to be digestible and acceptable by everyone who sees it or touches it. So guess what that does? That completely impedes your creative power. That takes away your ability to innovate, ideate, and attempt solutions. And what that ultimately does is hamper your creativity. You're no longer thinking big. You're thinking acceptable. You're thinking digestible. You're thinking comfortable. And when was the last time that greatness was created? By doing the most comfortable thing. So your job is to remove the cost of failure and let people paint with those great big giant brushes to splatter the paint all over the canvas. And I've said this many times, you need to stand between your team and failure. That means you need to be the buffer between their free, liberated creativity and the prospect of rejection or judgment. You have to encourage your teams that there's no such thing as a bad idea, and the best way to get to great ideas is to have lots of ideas in the first place. That means to work without their internal censors first, because that internal censor, that internal judge, is trying to please somebody rather than focusing on the best, most ingenious way to solve a problem. And I've said before that the only way to do that effectively is to create trust through experience, which means they need to see you going to the executive and saying, I'm encouraging these folks to paint with their biggest brushes, and some of the ideas that come up may not work, may sound scary, may even sound funny or objectionable at first, but I want you to keep an open mind, and I want you to stand behind their freedom to propose and to create. They need to see you doing that. They need to see you having that conversation. They need to see you say things like, if this fails, if we come up with an idea that is so big and so bold that it ends up not being able to work, that's on me. I helped them get there. I supported and promised them the safety of being able to paint with the biggest brushes possible. So if it flops, you're looking at me. You'll leave them alone. Now, once they've seen you do that and you've started to break ground, this is where you need to remind your team, think big, think bigger. So what will happen is, as they start to ideate, they're going to fall back to their default behavior, what they've learned, what they know, what they've experienced as being safe and comfortable. So here the ideas will be a lot of what we've seen before, the kinds of things we have always come up with, the kinds of solutions we've used in the past. But if you're there, as an Agile coach, Scrum Master, or practitioner of any kind, you're being asked to do differently, to create different results. So when you see ideas coming, say, great, that's awesome. What could be bigger? This is an awesome idea. How could we make even more impact? What could we do that would make this faster, broader, more impactful, more valuable, more engaging? If you don't encourage them to go bigger, they'll default to their standard thinking, no matter how much trust they have in you. And at the end of the day, won't generate anything new. Nothing will change. And I think the next thing that's important to stress is that creativity has to be a habit. Encourage people to go bigger and paint with the big brushes every time they get together, no matter what they're working on. See, innovation is the big watershed moments, the big creative ideas, maybe a new product, maybe a new process, maybe a new stake in the ground, a new stand, a new creed. Those things can drive big change, but remember, the change is also driven by small, daily decisions. So it's really important that you encourage this kind of big brush painting in the small, everyday, single-digit improvements, as well as the great big creative solution opportunities. What I'm getting at is that it's the daily discipline of courageous creativity, of big brush painting, that will create progress, however small or big. If you can take this on as a practice, you're covered from every angle, because every time we get together, we're feeling the freedom and we're earning the liberation of putting our best ideas out there and seeing what happens. And we're getting comfortable with the injury and the hurt of having some of our ideas to which we're often emotionally attached not work out, and having that be okay. See, you got to dream big, and here's why. You're going to fail anyway. Even your smallest pedestrian legacy thinking will eventually fail you. The idea won't work out. Something will slip. You'll miss a timeline. You'll miss a measurement or objective. You'll miss an outcome. So let me ask you this. If you're going to fail anyway, Why fail at small things? Why not fail at spectacular ambition, at your grandest goals and dreams? Part of my creed is to build heroism in people. But once you figure out that what holds you back is not the failure itself, but the bigness or smallness of your ambition, of your creativity, then it really opens something up. Now creativity can become a habit. It can become a mindset. It becomes the standard by which you measure yourself and others. It becomes what you encourage each other to do in service of the company, the client, or the goal. My friends, I hope this inspires you and helps you. As always, you can reach out at badassagile.com. You can find me on Twitter at badass_agile. And hey, check us out on LinkedIn or on Instagram at badassagile. I look forward to seeing you next time. And until then, stay badass.